All right, welcome back to the podcast. This is another week that we are all kind of just shut down. We're pretty much hunkered down at home, and the whole world, I think, is pretty much in the same boat. So I'm trying to keep positive through it, and I hope you guys are trying to keep positive through it. I think it's an important part that we kind of, all do our share and let things just keep going. Let the pros do what they do and just sit back. I mean, somebody said the other day, I saw a post on Facebook that said, this is the one time in the world where we just have to stay home and watch TV. Let's not screw that one up. And that's really important to do. So today's podcast, I want to address some things that are really real dear to my heart, and that's dog training equipment and the right to have that accessible at any time for any person. And before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about my what I'm trying to give back to you guys during this time, the coronavirus shutdown and everything. And that is, I'm doing a lot more live videos because I really want to give you guys the tools that you need to train your dog. So that's kind of my little part. I'm doing a lot of live casts on YouTube. I hope you tune into those. They're also always archived on YouTube. You can always get to them. There's different themes. We just talked about puppies. We talked about crate training. We talked about rescue dogs. We talked about all these different things. And each one has a theme. Check the front of my site, robertcabral.com, so that you can see what the next topic is going to be when the next scheduled podcast or video podcast is going to be, and or I should say live cast is going to be. These are podcasts, and I hope you guys all tune into the podcast. I hope you all enjoy the podcast. I hope you all share the podcast and continue to watch them. Remember, on my site, robertcabral.com, you can get a lot of great training. So if you're looking to really up the ante with your dog and take it to the next level, then I hope you will go to robertcabral.com and join up there. It's $9.95 a month. It's pretty inexpensive, pretty benign. And if you can't afford it, the stuff on YouTube is always free. I totally understand it. Times are tough. So if you can afford it, it's the way I keep the free stuff going, right? So the podcast, the YouTube videos, the training videos, the Ask Me Anythings, everything like that, I feed through my membership section and the money I make on my Amazon store. So that's how I get paid. That's what I do. And if you can support it, great. If you can't, please continue to train your dog and don't stop training your dog because you can't afford to join my membership section. So this thing came across my desk not too long ago. Somebody sent me an email about it. I get a lot of emails from people. It's very hard for me to get to all of them. This one kind of particularly struck a chord with me, and you're going to see why in a second. I'm going to read it to you, and I'm going to put it up on the screen as well. And it's Connecticut. It's in Connecticut, which is here in the United States on the East Coast. And it says, this Friday, March 6th, which is almost a month ago now, and I don't know how this went, but I'm still going to talk about this because it's that important. It's the meat of the issue that's the issue. So this Friday, March 6th, the Connecticut Joint Environment Committee is scheduled to hold a public hearing on HB 5338, which seeks to prohibit the sale of animal fighting paraphernalia. Now, when you hear just that part, you're down with it, right? As soon as I read that, I was like, yeah, I think we should ban the sale of animal fighting paraphernalia. So this is put up by the legislative alerts from the American Kennel Club, which I think is a great organization in this part. And I've got my issues with some of the things the AKC does, but not here. This is where we really need the AKC because it's a good, strong legislative branch to help dog owners and dog trainers and dog lovers. The American Kennel Club recognizes the difficulties in prosecuting those who engage in animal fighting under current law. And it is tough, right? Which requires catching individuals in the act. However, this bill defines, the bill they're talking about here is the HB 5338. The bill defines animal fighting paraphernalia as any equipment, product, or material of any kind that is used, intended for use, or designed for use in training, preparation, conditioning, or furtherance of animal fighting, including, but not limited to, and here you go, this is where it's going to really get you, treadmills, jump poles, and flirt poles. Now, I'll run through what those are, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Nothing in the bill describes how a court would distinguish one's intent in using equipment or products for legitimate training and conditioning of dogs from illegitimate animal fighting purposes. So Okay, so if you obviously know what a jump pole is, but a flirt pole is basically they sometimes use buggy whips, and at the end of it they'll tie either a rag or a squeaky toy or something, and the dog will chase it around, right? They use them for cats. You'll see if you Google flirt poles for cats, you'll see really simply what they look like. They're basically like there's a feather or a little fake mouse at the end of it, and they tease the dog with it, which for some purposes, it's for some dogs, it's not a really good thing. For some things, it's really good. We're teaching a dog to increase prey drive for protection dog training. You're trying to increase the dog's prey drive to get the dog to be more excitable. It's a great tool. Now, what was the other thing? Treadmills. Treadmills, right? Treadmills are banned because they resemble animal fighting paraphernalia. I use a treadmill almost every day. Today, I had Goofy and Maya on the treadmill for 10, 12 minutes each. And it's a dog treadmill, right? It's not a human treadmill. So these dog treadmills, they're called slat mills. And you can just Google slat mill or dog treadmill, or dog trotter or stuff like that. Dog trotter makes an amazing product. I have one myself. What it is, it's basically a two rollers, and sometimes people put carpet in the middle. Sometimes there's a track, and the dog powers this slat in order to create forward motion. Sometimes we tease the dog with a tug toy in front of him or treats in front of him or anything, and the dog will run and run and run. And when the dog doesn't want to run anymore or is too tired, they stop. And when they stop, the mill stops. It stops turning. It's not an electric treadmill like you see some of the dog trainers on TV use, where they tie the dog by the collar up to a treadmill and then have them walking. I don't like those, right? If they're very well supervised, it's one thing. They can be beneficial to the dog. But my problem with them is that the mill or the motor in the treadmill will keep turning. And when the dog is tired, they have nowhere to go. They have to keep going. Whether it's a walk or a run, the dog must keep going. And if they don't, they're going to get choked. If they're on a harness, they're just going to get dragged. It can get damage to the bottom of the dog's feet. You can cause tracheal damage if the dog gets choked on it. You can cause other issues in their feet if they're getting dragged on it, or if their toenail gets caught under it. It's not a good thing. Everybody, you've seen the cute video of the dog on the treadmill at the gym, and he's doing his exercise next to his dad and all that. And it's funny and it's cute and it's great if it's supervised and the person knows what they're doing. But a lot of bad things can happen to the dog on that. But a slat mill, a treadmill that just keeps moving as long as the dog is moving, is a really good way for a dog to burn off steam in a really, really safe way. In other words, the dog is going to understand that I'm running, and the more they run, the more it turns. And you'll see Maya is like a crazy lady on it. She just will run and run and run and run. I'm training Dwayne to run on it. What's great about the treadmill is it lets the dog burn off a lot of steam in a straight motion. In other words, the dog just keeps going straight forward. There's no twisting, there's no turning, there's less risk of injury because of the lack of turning. There's also less risk of injury because there's no gopher holes. There's no sticks to trip over. There's no glass, there's no nails, there's no hard surfaces. It's cushioned. There's no impact on the dog's joints. So all in all, it's a great tool. And to take and label some things that people don't agree with, or for some reason they want to label. I agree. Dog fighting must be stopped. If we could find the one piece of equipment that only dog fighters use, and we want to shut that down, I'm for it. I'm totally for it. I think dog fighting is one of the most idiotic, nonsensical, moronic, stupid possible things that has ever existed. Cockfighting, I'm not into chickens or anything like that, but anytime you're making an animal fight for human pleasure, you're a moron, right? You're basically one of the dumbest human beings on the face of the earth. If you are involved in dog fighting, you are a moron. You're one of the dumbest pieces of crap on earth. I just can't stand anybody who would do that to a dog. You're a dipshit, right? I'm sorry, you're a lowlife. But don't take away tools that other trainers or dog owners use to bring benefit to their dogs and take that away, because you now say that this is dog fighting equipment. The same thing holds true, by the way, and this is my segue into other equipment. For example, prong collars, e-collars, choke chains. These are things that legislatively people think we're going to ban them, right? We're going to ban them because they're cruel tools that people use, and by banning them, we're going to stop cruel acts. And it's insane, right? If you think that taking and making a prong collar illegal, you're going to solve abuse on animals, it's like thinking that you're going to illegalize guns and there's not going to be any more crime. People who think that are myopic. People who think that you can put a Band-Aid on this situation and it's going to cure everything down the line are insane. Because people will still find, first of all, they'll find access to these tools. The wrong people will still be able to find access to these tools. Criminals will always find guns. And if they can't find guns, they'll use a knife. If they can't find a knife, they'll use a bat. That'll happen as well with dog training equipment. So if you think somebody's using a tool like a prong collar to abuse a dog intentionally or unintentionally, I'm going to get into that in a second, then you're going to take that tool away from them and you think they're not going to do it? I mean, where does that logic even fit in? If a person is going to be abusive to an animal, they will use whatever tool is at their disposal. That means if you make the prong collar illegal, they'll fashion their own prong collar. Or they'll use a choke chain that way. And if you make that illegal, they'll use a belt and whip the dog. They'll do something to become abusive to the dog if that's their main goal, which is insanity, right? Anybody who's going to abuse an animal, what you should do is really stiffen the penalties and do more investigations into these type of things, right? You need to make more of an example of these kind of things. We all know Michael Vick was a dog fighter, and it was a horrible, stupid, idiotic thing to do. But it brought it to national attention, and the guy did more time than anybody else, and had some kind of a sweetheart deal with the Humane Society. And then a few months, years, whatever later, he wants to own a dog, and the Humane Society is saying that's okay. The Humane Society really has a legislative branch as well that's supposed to be out there in dealing with dog fighting. Now, granted, he paid his dues. He's done. He didn't, he paid his dues. He went to jail and did his stuff. But should he be allowed to own another dog? I mean, no. I mean, even Chris Rock's routine on that was I think it was Chris Rock's routine. Wasn't it Chris Rock? I'm not sure. Anyway, I may be misspeaking here. If I am, I'm sorry. I'm a big fan of Chris Rock's. But, Michael Vick doesn't need a dog, right? Michael Vick doesn't need a dog at all. And if you get convicted of dogfighting, you need to have a stricter sentence. Not saying more strict than Michael Vick. I'm sure his sentence was very, very strict. They made an example out of him. I don't believe they made an example of him because he's black. I think they made an example out of him because he's famous. And I think that's something that Chris Rock talked about, that where he said, when OJ got convicted, it wasn't about race, it was about fame. And I think that is what it is. So Michael Vick is a very, very famous person, and because of that, he paid a very, very famous due for the crime he committed. His sentence was probably much harsher than if he would have been, Michael, the 7-Eleven clerk who was caught dogfighting. But getting back down to it, there was immense amount of tools that they used in the dogfighting that everybody else uses, right? In regular dog training, a collar, a leash, harnesses to pull, pull harnesses. That's another thing that they'll all automatically go on. Well, if you're using weighted vests and pull harnesses on your dog, you're actually going to fight the dog. But that's not true, right? If you want your dog to be in shape, if people who want to be in shape use weighted vests and they use pull harnesses to pull sleds, the sleds in the gym, not those kind of sleds. And the people aren't, training to fight. The people are training to stay in shape. I really don't think that there is a tool or a training device that is really that specific to being something that could only be for dog fighting, right? The only thing that could be for dog fighting, something that's used only for dog fighting, is fighting dogs. And if you have fighting dogs, then that's it. That's why I'm a big fan of not having aggressive dogs in the public. As much as I've worked with Bound Angels, as much as I've done so many different things for shelter dogs and for rescue dogs and for aggressive dogs and for all this stuff, I'm not a big fan of taking dogs that are out of fighting lines and getting them adopted. I'm really not. Now, a lot of the dogs you see are bait dogs, and bait dogs are super soft dogs. They're just, any dog could be considered a bait dog. Any dog that's not going to fight back, that's going to be a target for a fighting dog to condition the fighting dog. Those dogs, when people are rehabilitating those dogs, it's not a miracle to rehabilitate those dogs. They're generally fearful dogs that have been beat up and bitten and everything like that. Sometimes they will bite, but for the most part, they're not the dominant aggressive dogs. Those are the fighting dogs. And those are the dogs that, people always tell you that, they can rehabilitate dangerous, aggressive dogs. And I've worked with those dogs, so I can tell you that they can be rehabilitated, but their life needs to be managed almost forever, right? Once they have this drive, this fight drive built into them, one, bred into them, two, and trained into them, three, then that is very, very hard to undo. It's a hard bell to unring because that amount of drive in the dog doesn't go away. So those are the dogs we need to kind of get. We kind of have to look at it. If they're in the shelters, whatever, I'm sorry, you mainly euthanize them. If they're that aggressive, if they're humanly aggressive or dog aggressive. I always say until we have no more aggressive dogs in the shelters, until we have no more friendly dogs in the shelters, the aggressive ones are going to have to go because it's only fair to try to save the best citizens first. It's the same thing with people, right? If people are in jail, don't let child molesters, rapists, murderers, or any of these people out of jail, right? You can let people out of jail and rehabilitate them if they, had a bag of weed or they had some, petty theft or something. I get it. You want to rehabilitate them, get it. But you're not going to rehabilitate a child molester, a rapist, a murderer, or a serial murderer, or any of these people. I'm sorry. I think the death penalty has a good place for that. And the same thing with dogs. I think that, and I'm talking from a perspective of my father was murdered, right? Through a drug crime, through legal marijuana, whatever you want to call that crap. But this is why I'm against drugs. I'm against, very lenient laws on people. I think people should be put down, should be killed for those things. And I think dogs that are aggressive should be put down as well. So we want to look at the whole idea of banning tools that could make life better for dogs. So you can have a dog like Goofy, Maya, Dwayne, Jimmy, Boz, your dog, any dog that I've worked with, some shelter dogs, some pet dogs, some protection dogs, some sport obedience dogs, or whatever. And we need these tools. We want to be able to use tools like prong collars, choke collars, e-collars. We want to use, tools like flirt poles and vests and weighted vests and harnesses and all these things, because they're ways to train the dog. They're ways that makes dogs function better, understand things better, and they can get along better in society as long as we have these tools. We need to differentiate between the tool and the methodology. So in other words, if someone is using the tool for something bad, then that act needs to be punished. We don't need to punish the tool. We don't need to, and I'm getting in a political subject here, which some of you guys may or may not like, but we're not going to legalize guns and stop crime, right? Crime is still going to happen. Crime has been existent no matter what. Crime is existent in societies where there are no guns. And if you do illegalize the guns or you do illegalize the dog training equipment, then you're going to make something illegal, and illegal people, who are acting illegally, who are fighting dogs or abusing dogs, are still going to find a way to get it. They're either going to make it themselves, they're going to buy it overseas, they're going to do something, right? Steroids are illegal. You go to the gym, you see guys in great shape, you think they're not doing steroids, you're insane. Drugs are illegal. You go to a bar, people are doing coke, doing this, doing that. It's still happening, right? You need to punish the crime, not the tool. So by making cocaine illegal, I'm not saying it should be legal. I'm against that, but I'm saying on a different topic, on a different way of looking at it, cocaine isn't used for something positive, right? It's not like people say, well, I use it to cure cancer, and the other person is using it for, getting high and driving under the influence or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. Illegal drugs stem from an illegal cartel. People are killed, bad things happen through those channels, but dog training equipment has a whole different side. You can't compare those to each other. And I know that's what people are going to start to do. And they're going to talk about the abuse that goes on with these tools, but that abuse would go on with or without those tools because people would find another way to abuse the dog, whether it's by getting those tools illegally, one, and people who really need it can't get it, or two, by finding other tools, by doing it, by beating a dog with their hand, by doing anything like that. So those are the things that we really want to focus on. You understanding that we can't illegalize the tools. This is really an important part. Whether those tools are, like I said, prong collars, choke chains, vests, harnesses, flirt poles here, treadmills. I mean, treadmills. It's completely insane that they will illegalize a treadmill for a dog, just because somebody might use it for a bad purpose. And granted, if I find somebody who's a dog fighter, they should go away for a long, long time. They should have everything they own. They should be stripped away from them. They should start back with nothing. I do feel that strongly about it because I do feel it's that abusive. Anybody who abuses an animal is a contender for someone who would abuse a child or a person. I got no place for that, right? So anyway, I want to just give a shout out. AKC did a good job here on this. Dog conditioning equipment is necessary. It's something we should have because it makes the life better for the dog, and it gives us the opportunity to create a better life for a dog, and through better training and understanding. I just hope that people who use things like e-collars and choke chains or prong collars get some basic understanding from someone who understands it, a good trainer. There's tons of good trainers who use prong collars and e-collars very, very effectively and very, very humanely. So the rest of this video, I'm going to take some questions from my viewers. And let's see what we got here. Here we go. Margaret says, great video. I guess about a video I put up. Must have been great. My neighbor got a pit puppy about 2 months ago. The puppy is about 4 months now. From day 2, the children has walked the puppy. I've got a big issue with that. I've noticed that with the girl, her age around 10, the puppy is very forceful with her, nipping at her hands, feet, grabbing her jacket, arms. There is lots of tugging from the puppy. I've seen the girl trying to get the puppy off of her jacket and twirl her around. My thought is the puppy is going to be dominant over her. You're right. The pup doesn't act like this with the mom. My question is, should I say something about the pup's behavior? If so, how do I approach the issue in a neighborly way? Thanks for the help again. Love your wisdom. So, I'll give you a great example. Right down the street here, there's somebody who owns an Akita. And that Akita we've been told the dog is aggressive with other dogs. Now, the Akitas are probably good 100 pounds. Today, we were walking our dogs, and the Akita's coming around the corner, walked by 3 children. The 3 children possibly equaled the weight of the Akita. They were like maybe 5, 6 years old. And although it's cute, right? It's cute. Oh, there's a little girl walking the big Akita. It's not cute. Because what parents' job is to teach the child responsibility of walking the dog, but the parent should be there with that child, right? You cannot, in today's society or in any society, send a child out to walk a dog around the street. It's insane, especially at maybe 5, 6, 7 years old. It's insane. Now, when that dog is an Akita or a Mastiff or a German Shepherd or a Malinois or anything like that, and you're sending the dog out and you already know the dog has behavioral issues, and dogs like Akitas and Shar-Peis and Chows and Mastiffs are very dominant bred dogs, you're an idiot. So your question here, Margaret, is how do you approach it? I would say to the mother, I know you love your child and I know you love your dog, but I'm seeing some things that I think are dangerous for your child and dangerous for your dog. Because if your child and your dog get into it and the child gets hurt, the dog is going to get put down. So even if the puppy is playing, which it sounds like it is, right? It's nipping at her hands, at her feet and all that stuff, and the dog is real, and she's young and the dog is young, the dog is seeing the child as an equal. If another dog gets in there and something happens and the child gets in between that fight, it's going to be pandemonium. It's going to be very, very, very dangerous. So it's not only the puppy playing with the girl, but also if something should happen between the two. And that's the angle I would take to approach it. This question goes out to Hatem, who says, my puppy bites me. This is always the same question. I want to ask you something. I have a Belgian Malinois and puppy, her age 60 days old. It bites me when I play with her. Please tell me what I should do to teach her not to bite my legs. And when touch her in the head, she bites my hand. So the reason, Hatem, and I've talked about this at least in 25 videos, that puppies mouth your hands because that's the way they communicate. Children grab your glasses. If I was wearing glasses and I had a little baby, she'd grab my glass and I wouldn't think she's being aggressive. I would think that's the way she communicates. A puppy will nip your feet, your hands, your whatever. A puppy will nip no matter what. And that's what you've got to understand, right? It's just being a puppy. That's all. That's all there is to it. It's a puppy. Put the puppy in a crate and train the puppy. Next question goes out to Robert Zimmer, who says, hey, Robert, I have a 5-month-old German Shepherd. He is super smart, great ball drive, great tug drive, and has been a studious pup. My entire family and I have all participated in training the pup, and he's a sweet and loving dog. My question is, he does not seem to be bothered or even alert us that someone is on our front porch. We have a weekly milk delivery, and he doesn't let us know. No alert to salespeople so far either. I know he will probably never be a protection dog, but it seems like we should at least be alerted. Is there a way to train an alert? And I'll tell you what, Robert, there is, but I wouldn't do it, right? Because you don't want to train this into the dog where you're going to have, I wish I could have you talk to people who email me constantly and say that their dog is driving them nuts because it barks at everything that goes by. The dog will not be able to decipher when he should bark and when he shouldn't bark. Right? So if he's chill and calm and quiet, it's the best thing you could ask for in the dog. Enjoy it. You got a great dog. Be happy with the dog you got. I always say that, and people inevitably always want a dog to be different. Vanessa Buxton says, hi, Robert. I've been training our mixed breed dog since he was 11 weeks old. Over the past few months, he's pulling big time on the lead, nearly dragging me down the driveway and street. I'm trying to get him to stop, turn around when I stop to get him to stop pulling. But he's too excited and happy to go on his walks and go to the local park to run. He was originally on a harness when he was a puppy. That's a bad move. Then about 5 months ago, we got him on a collar. Now he's 1 year old and pulling so strong. If I bring back the harness, will that work along with correct commands? And the answer is no. The way you're going to fix this is I would probably watch my leash training videos on my membership site or on YouTube that will show you how to properly teach the dog to focus on you. You might need to use a prong collar on the dog, which would be very, very fair, but you need to condition the dog. So you might want to watch my prong collar videos and my leash training videos. They'll both give you a lot of information on how to communicate with the dog on what you want, and just stopping isn't enough for some dogs. Some dogs you have to make about turns, 180-degree turns, and get the dog to focus on you. Not a hard thing to do, but definitely it's worth the work. Next question goes out to Natasha from South Africa, who says, I have a 14-month-old German Shepherd. Had Logan since 8 weeks. Since puppy school, he showed nervousness. Got better every week. Obedience train went well. At home, he's obedient, friendly with anyone coming to the house, never been destructive. I still take him to a group class every Saturday, and I think that's fantastic. Anybody does that, kudos. But he is nervous as hell at training, doesn't even want to take treats, and obedience flies out of his head. He barks at dogs and people with a correction. He barks at dogs and people. With a correction, he reacts good and hide behind me. That's not acting good, though. We go on walks every day and have the same reactiveness, sometimes not all the time. I am part of a group of people taking our dogs on beach walks 3 times a week. I have stopped going because he just can't handle so many dogs, but I still take him on group walks with smaller amount of dogs and dogs he gets along with. This is off-lead walking. I have stopped making a fuss over his nervousness, correct and ignore. He has not bitten any one of dog. I have muzzle trained him. I will only use the muzzle for the vet. Is his nerves his genetic, and what more can I do or not? Is he just being protective? So a couple things. One is, yes, nerves are genetic. So if you have a dog that's nervous, he's going to be nervous. You're not going to really get that out of him. The best thing you can do with the dog is you can give him a job to do. So you can teach him when he gets nervous, hey, sit, hey, come, hey, follow me, hey, lay down, hey, do whatever, right? If you give him a job to do, he can't do the job that he thinks he should be doing, which is being nervous. So you want to build confidence in a dog, give him a job to do. Teach him to shake paw, teach him to high five, teach him to, sit, teach him to go around you, teach him to weave in your legs, teach him to lay down. Teach him those things, and I think you'll have a better time. Don't overstress the dog. Don't, at this 14-month window, put him into a position where he's expected to do more than he's capable of doing. He might be a nervous dog, and if he's a nervous dog, love him for being a nervous dog and give him structure to get him to be more confident. Confidence will undo nervousness every single time. It may not undo it 100%, but it will undo it to a degree, and give the dog a job to do. You decide what he should do, and you decide what he shouldn't do. Okay, let's see what we got here. I think I might be missing a page here. Oh, no, I'm not. Actually, it's right here. Okay. Will Nees, my last question for the show. Hey, just got a puppy and it turns out he's deaf. Training is different, but isn't difficult. The only thing I'm having a big issue with is bite inhibition. Obviously, he can't hear, and he tend to really piss off my Dobie. Have an idea of better way to get him to stop biting so hard. So I'm assuming that you're saying that he's biting your Dobie, but then it has nothing to do. So with dogs, verbal communication is the least of their communications, right? Most dogs communicate through spatial pressure, through body language, and so you can do a lot of things if he's biting. Get in his space, right? So push him forward. Let him see that that's not acceptable. You can give him a little tug on his neck, on his scruff, and it's called scruffing the dog, and say, hey, knock it off. And even if he's deaf, he can still feel the vibration of your sound, and he can feel your body language, and he can communicate much better through that than you trying to explain to him or doing hand signals. But your other dog should be giving him very visual signs through body language of what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. Sometimes people start to overthink the dog, and they think that they need to think of something different. You know, deaf animals survive really well. Deaf dogs do really, really well. In the wild, probably not so much, but in society, they survive very well if you make less of a big deal about it, right? Just understand what you got, the dog you got, love the dog you got, and I think you'll be fine. But use spatial pressure, use body language to get the dog to understand what you want, what you won't accept, and you'll have a much easier time training the dog, and the dog will have a really nice life. Kudos to you for keeping the dog and not turning him in or not putting him down. You'll have a really nice dog. I know a lot of people have had deaf dogs, not a lot, but a few people have deaf dogs, and they have a really nice dog. They really enjoy the dog a lot. So that's it for the show. I ask you, again, check out my website, robertcabral.com. Live chats going on all through this coronavirus stay-at-home thing. I'm going to keep them going. Share the podcast. Check out my social media. Follow me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all those. And I will see you soon. Thanks a lot for being here, and appreciate you guys tuning in. Give the best to your dog. Your dog loves you. Promise you that.